If someone had asked me a year ago if I thought my wife would ever cheat on me, I'd have laughed in their face. Not because I believed in fairy tales, but because Melanie wasn't just my wife, she was my anchor, my constant. We met 10 years ago at a college event, both stumbling over the last slice of pizza at a frat party neither of us wanted to be at. We laughed, shared that slice, and somewhere between talking about bad professors and worse cafeteria food, we clicked. Our marriage wasn't flashy, but it worked. I was an HVAC technician, the kind of guy who came home with grease under his nails and stories about broken condensers. Melanie worked in marketing, smart, articulate, and always 5 steps ahead of me in conversations. We didn't have a perfect love story, but it was ours. Or at least, I thought it was. The first time I noticed something off, it was barely noticeable. Melanie had always been particular about our home being spotless, but for a couple of weeks, I kept seeing little things: a wine glass in the sink when I hadn't had any, a misplaced pillow on the couch, a faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine. At first, I chalked it up to long hours and my imagination. She was stressed at work, pulling longer hours with a new client in town. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. It all unraveled the day we had an electrical issue in the house. A circuit in the kitchen had been flickering for weeks. Normally, I'd fix it myself, but I'd been working double shifts, and Melanie insisted we hire someone. "Let someone else do the dirty work for once," she said with a wink. That was so like her, sassy and playful. She'd already called a local handyman service, and the guy was scheduled to come that Thursday. I remember the moment I met him. Tall, confident, mid-30s, with a tool belt slung low on his hips like he'd just stepped out of a commercial. His name was Drew. Handshake like a vice grip, cocky smile. I didn't think much of it at the time. "Hey man," he said, glancing around the living room. "Nice place. Your wife tells me the switchboard's acting up in the kitchen?" I nodded and showed him in. Melanie came downstairs a few minutes later, all done up like she was going out, tight jeans, hair curled, makeup subtle but flawless. "Hey Drew," she said, voice a little too upbeat. That's when I first felt it. Something too familiar in her tone. Like they already knew each other. My stomach twisted, but I buried it. "I'll be back in a few," she told me, grabbing her purse. "Just running some errands." "Want me to come with?" I asked, mostly out of habit. She smiled. "Nah. Besides, someone's gotta supervise the handyman." The way she said it made Drew chuckle. I didn't like that chuckle. I didn't like the way his eyes lingered on her as she walked out the door. Later that evening, I noticed his van was still parked outside long after the job should have been done. I found Melanie in the kitchen, flushed and a little too flustered. Drew wasn't there anymore. She said he'd left 20 minutes ago. Said he'd found a complicated wiring issue that took longer than expected. Said a lot of things. The next morning, I checked the circuit panel. Everything was fine, better than fine. Clean wiring, new parts. No signs it had ever been a complicated job. That was my second clue. The third came a week later when I saw her phone light up with a message as she stepped out of the room. "Can't stop thinking about that kitchen counter." From someone named D. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than suspicions. I needed truth. So I called the handyman service under a fake name. Said I had electrical issues. Asked if Drew could be the one to come out. "He's not available anymore," the receptionist said. "He's doing a private job for a client, indefinite timeline." That client, I'd later find out, was my wife. The next few days passed like I was trapped in someone else's body. I still kissed Melanie goodbye in the mornings, still pretended to care about how her workday went, but everything felt numb. I was watching our life unravel, thread by thread, and she didn't even know I was holding the scissors. That weekend, I finally did what I'd been dreading. I followed her. She said she was going to meet a client at a cafe downtown. Said she might be late, told me not to wait up. I waited exactly 10 minutes after she left before getting in my truck and trailing her. She didn't go downtown. She didn't go to a cafe. She drove across town, pulled into a quiet neighborhood, and parked in front of a small, tidy bungalow. Drew's place. I didn't go to the door. I sat there, engine off, watching through the windshield like some kind of ghost. I didn't need to see what happened inside. My imagination filled in every detail I didn't want to picture. The way she smiled when he opened the door. The way she leaned into him before even stepping inside. It wasn't just about sex. There was familiarity. Comfort. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft rise and fall of her breathing beside me. I thought of the promises we made, the years we'd built together, and how easily they unraveled. I kept hearing that message in my head, can't stop thinking about that kitchen counter. That was where I made her pancakes on Sunday mornings. That was where she'd sat, barefoot in her robe, smiling at me like I was her whole world. I waited 2 more days. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to have everything I needed, not just for me, but because if she was going to tear our life apart, I wanted her to see exactly what she broke. On Wednesday, I left work early and drove to my friend Alex's house. He's a former cop turned private investigator. I hadn't told him much before, just asked if he could dig a little. I gave him the details, the texts, the handyman service. In 2 days, he had photos. Time stamps. Text logs. Drew coming and going from our house during times I was supposed to be at work. Melanie and Drew at a hotel on the edge of town. Even one of them shopping together at a hardware store like they were playing house. You sure you want all of this? Alex asked as he handed over the file. No, I said. But I need it. That night, I made dinner. Her favorite rosemary chicken with mashed potatoes and that red wine she loved. I needed the setting to feel normal. I needed her caught off guard. She came home late, cheeks flushed, apologizing for traffic. She kissed me on the cheek and said the house smelled amazing. I smiled, kissed her back, and we sat down at the table like everything was fine. Halfway through the meal, I asked, "So how's Drew doing?" She froze. Fork halfway to her mouth. Drew? Yeah, I said casually, taking a sip of wine. The electrician. The one who spent a little too much time fixing one switchboard. Her eyes dropped. Her hand trembled. He was just helping out. Right, I said, standing up and placing a manila envelope on the table in front of her. Helping out on the kitchen counter. At hotels. In his bed. She didn't open it. She didn't have to. I watched her crumble in real time, her jaw slack, her eyes blinking too fast like she could undo what she'd done if she looked surprised enough. Why? I asked, voice low. Why him? Why like this? She shook her head. I don't know. It just happened. You're always gone. You're tired. He made me feel. Spare me, I snapped, louder than I meant to. Don't insult both of us by pretending this was about feelings. You made a choice. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel sympathy. I felt relief. I'd finally said it out loud. I'd finally stopped pretending. I want a divorce, I said. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Thick. Heavy. You're serious, she whispered. I was serious when I married you, I said. You weren't. She didn't argue. She didn't scream. She just sat there, staring at the envelope like it might swallow her whole. Maybe it already had. I left that night. Packed a bag, called Alex, crashed on his couch. When I came back a week later, she was gone. Left a note, a box of keys, in silence. That was 6 months ago. Now, I've got a small apartment, peace of mind, and more nights than not where I can breathe again. The pain doesn't hit me like it used to. Some mornings, I still wake up reaching for her out of habit, but my hand always finds cool sheets, and honestly, I'm thankful. She wired our life together like it was temporary. I just didn't realize the circuit was always set to fail.